Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I'm going to give a comprehensive discussion of Renaissance Astrology Talismans for protection, including protection against curses, enemies, evil spirits, basically any malefic spiritual attack. So to do that, I think we need to kind of do a deep dive into first protection magic, but even deeper into fact curses and malefic magic and things like that in general. What we're going to try to do is to have a kind of common sense approach. We're going to take a middle path between, on one hand, the overly positive New Age, and then on the other hand, the overly negative, you could say, religious approach, or neurotic approach is another way of another thing that we have to stay away from. So if we look at the New Age stuff, I mean, this is a little bit of a caricature or a little bit of a stereotype, but there is a tendency, like psychological astrology, to be super positive. So there is a tendency to assume that every single spirit is good. You can just kind of willy-nilly do whatever you want and everything is going to be positive and it's all good. Again, this is not something that's really going to be is borne out by our traditional sources, our experience. The flip side of that on the other side is that this sort of mainline religious view is that every single spirit, of course, except theirs, is evil. Anything you do other that's not having to do with us is bad. And so again, we want to come in between those two approaches. There's also, like I said, this sort of a neurotic approach. The more I do astrology and magic, I'm involved with it professionally with customers and stuff. The recognition has come to me that there's a lot of people using this sort of neurotic stuff and kind of channeling it into astrology and magic as they get, they're doing astrology and instead of it being something that's comforting to them, that's relaxing to them, it just freaks them out. They look at their chart and they're freaked out about their chart and solar returns or whatever, Mercury retrograde, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's always new stuff to get scared about. And there's always somebody on the internet shouting about terrible stuff and freaking people out and getting people upset. So it's like, what I would say of the protection talismans is this is a good way to really, feel comfortable. If you got a talisman, you got the protection, you're basically doing everything you can. That's a good way to just kind of, but what I would say to people in general is let's chill. You don't need to freak out about stuff. And I do think that the talismans are a good way. I mean, certainly for me, the ritual that I do daily ritual. Talk a little bit about my Algo ritual. I do Pleiades together because they're close by. Do those two together. Very calming, very soothing. And like I said, the sense of having done this is I've done everything I can, I'm taking action and I do find it kind of deeply relaxing. So again, I think that's a good antidote to, like I said, to the sort of neurotic approach that's freaked out about everything. So if we look at reality, I think that, a reasonable approach to it is to recognize that there are an infinite number of spirits and many of those are simply indifferent to humans. They don't care what we're doing. They're not involved with us. They're not around. We're not in contact with them. Of those that we're in contact with and that pay attention to humans, they're going to range from our standpoint from being good to neutral to evil. I mean, this is borne out by our traditional sources. This is borne out by every traditional society. You're going to find there's this mixture of different kinds of spirits, and even within one spirit, they can vary. So again, same thing with people's use of magic. I mean, again, the New Age stuff, it's all positive. It's obviously there's plenty of people out there. It's like the internet. They thought it was going to be so great, it's so wonderful and democratic and free and all that. And it's just, like I said, there's all sorts of fraud and nasty stuff and all sorts of bad shit going on the internet as well as the good stuff. That's the way people are. And humans are just reflecting this underlying, way that the universe is sort of patterned. So I will say about the stuff that I do, I'm very resolutely, I only deal with angels and angelic magic. Only do benefic magic. I absolutely will not hurt others. I mean, people come in and say, what about, we have these pentacles and say, what about this particular pentacle of Saturn? It's like that particular pentacle says in the source it causes someone to be obsessed with demons. It's like, not doing that, I don't do curse magic. I don't do anything to hurt other people. No matter how justified you feel like you are, I'm not going to be doing that. Now, you have to make the choice as to what you want to do. Now, what I would say about that is that the nice thing about the positive magic of dealing with angels is that you just don't have to worry about blowback. And I had somebody email me recently who was asking about pest control. Pest control is probably the only type of talisman that I would probably say that I think is I would be reasonably justified in doing. Pest control, though, is basically a curse on whatever pet, like it's rats or mosquitoes or flies or whatever, you're cursing them. The problem with that is it's a bit like splashing around pesticide. And the person was asking me, how do I stay safe myself? It's like, that's a good question. It's like, you're going to have a certain amount of that. Like I said, you have pesticide all over your yard. You're going to, walk it in your house. Your dog's going to be rolling around in it. This is just the reality of that negative magic, is that the idea that I can just make everybody else suffer but not me, or cause that other negative stuff to happen, and I'm not going to have any blowback from it. Again, that's what I would say. You just have to make the choice. My choice has been to only do positive magic. At the same time, I'm not so freaked out that doing magic is going to be terrible, that every little thing is going to blow up. I get these people and they're like, I just remember this is, years ago, someone got this Jupiter talisman. They said, well, 3 weeks after I got the talisman, my mother-in-law fell down the stairs, so I threw the talisman away as a Jupiter talisman. I'm like, why would you think there was any connection there? But, they just jump to conclusions and they're freaked out and they're looking for an easy answer to that. And, that's the solution to it. So, again, find a middle path, have the confidence in what you're doing. If you're worried about the blowback, then don't do negative magic. That's the same. That's real easy. Just do positive stuff. And so again, everything we do at Renaissance Astrology, all the talismans I'm going to be talking about are all positive. Okay. We're going to go up to the edge with Algol, but I do believe that Algo does not go over the edge, even the most aggressive form. So let's talk a little bit about curses and malefic spiritual attack. I mean, again, this is not metaphoric. Okay. We're actually, the spiritual exists. And because negative spiritual forces, people and forces and energy exist, it can be used in a negative way. This is a reality. It's certainly possible. The question is whether it's actually happening in any particular place. Now, one of the things that's a tendency for people to do is to assume that a curse is a conscious attack by a professional magic user, okay? Spells or something like that or whatever. The reality is it could be unconscious. I mean, you have this innate spiritual connection with people that you're emotionally close to, your family, your friends or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, something like that. If they're angry at you, that can have a negative spiritual effect on you. So it's not necessarily, like I said, someone casting a spell on you. Now, the thing that I would say about that too is that, if there's all this negative energy about it, that's another reason why maybe you want to get a talisman, because it helps you protect yourself from that. Because we're just kind of awash in this spiritual forces. Once you start becoming aware of it, once you start operating in that milieu, it's something that you probably should be thinking about. If you're doing magic, then you maybe should be thinking about a protection talisman. Other thing that people do is they'll assume, and this is part of the neurotic thing, but they'll assume that any problem is due to a curse. Anything that goes wrong in their life, anything that's happening in their life, they must be cursed. There can't be any other explanation for it. And like I said, it has a conscious attack by a professional magic user, blah, blah, blah. And so then the solution to the problem is to remove the curse, and that's really easy. So you're cursed, take the curse away, which is easy, and then all your problems will be solved. And again, this just does not work, okay? Because generally this is not the problem. The family curse or whatever, gypsy fortune teller stuff or whatever, is not the source of the problem. And how do you remove a curse? I mean, I don't remove curses as a specialist sort of job. It's something I don't know how to do. I had a person actually I used to recommend, and they used to tell me, "Oh, this is so great! I'm so good at this." They died mysteriously. I didn't hear from them for a year or so, and then I was rooting around the internet, and I saw this thing that they died, and it was some kind of mysterious circumstances. So I thought, very interesting. I mean, for a person who's curse removal. So obviously, like I said, that was, but I don't have anyone to recommend for that. What I would say about the curse stuff is that if you're concerned that you're cursed, that I would recommend horary. That's, as far as I'm considered the best method to determine. It's almost like getting a lab test. And I would say in maybe 25 to 33% of the time, a quarter to a third of the time, there's a current spiritual attack. Lots of times it's not. People are just worried about it or other bad stuff is happening. I mean, the very typical horary chart, the ruler of the ascendant who represents the querent, the person asking the question, that ruler will be afflicted. So they got all sorts of problems, but it's not connected to malefic spiritual attack. They just have other stuff, negative stuff going on in their lives. That can be very useful to figure it out. But like I said, there's this whole gypsy fortune teller thing of like, oh, I see you're under a curse and give me $10,000. I mean, I don't do that. Nothing to do with that. And then with the horaries, again, when I'm not gonna push talismans for a horary if it comes up that there's a curse. But that's what I have available as talismans. And so when I look at a protection talisman, I don't look at it as something that's removing the curse. Okay. All it's basically doing, as far as the way I conceptualize, is it's sort of shielding or protecting you, or it's dealing with those negative effects. Now, for the most part, traditional sources, when they talk about protection from spiritual attack or curses or evil spirits or whatever, they're really going with with fixed stars. This used to be more of a problem when people were all not comfortable with fixed stars. Now it's very cutting edge. People are into it. So, fixed people are very happy to deal with fixed stars. And we, in Renaissance Astrology, have a very wide range of fixed star talismans. And again, this is something I think it's worth thinking about. There's a lot of sort of negativity just floating around. I do a daily Algo. That's a little bit of overkill unless you're an astrologer to figure out the time. I do Algo basically every day. But having the talisman, doing that spiritual work, I think can be helpful in kind of clearing the atmosphere. And if you have specific concerns about it, again, you can a particular enemy or something like that, then that's also something that's talismans can be helpful. Again, not 100% solution to the problem, and it may not be that the curse is the problem in the first place. But I think they're useful. I certainly use protection talismans myself. So let's start off and talk about Algol. Now, Algol is our most powerful spiritual protection talisman. And I'm going to talk about Algo a little bit. I think there's a lot of fear and misinformation about Algo. Maybe I'll like to partially dispel some of that, but I'm not trying to do a hard sell. I'm not trying to say, oh, Algo is good for everybody. You got to get Algo. It's the best in the world. Just want to kind of set the record straight as far as Algo. If you decide Algo is not for you, we have plenty of other talismans. I mean, don't worry about that. We got lots of other powerful talismans. You can do that, and you really should be doing it. If you don't feel comfortable, then hey, there you go. I mean, there's no reason to why do that. On the other hand, there's a lot, like I said, of misinformation out there about Algo. Once you find out that's misinformation, you might say, hey, Algo is a really good choice. It is the most powerful protection talisman. So here's the thing about Algo. Algo as a fixed star in a horary or natal chart is going to basically give you negative indications. Okay, it's considered to be malefic for predictive purposes. However, when you go over to talk about protection talismans, it's excellent for protection talisman. Now, a good source of that is if you look at the Quadripartitas, which is one of the variant manuscripts of Hermes on the 15 fixed stars. This is all together in one manuscript. In one section, it says, yeah, Algol's negative predictive, in your horary or natal chart. And then the next section says, oh, Algol's a great protection talisman. So they're perfectly aware of the negativity in the prediction, and they nevertheless still think it's a great talisman for protection. So one way to think about that is that negative energy is sort of projected outwards. It's like a guard dog. If you're trying to rob somebody and the guard dog bites you, you're going to think that guard dog is bad. That's an evil guard dog. But the person who's being protected by that dog is not going to think that dog is an evil dog. Okay, he's doing his job. He's protecting against evil. He's stopping those robbers. That's good. Again, this idea that a thing is 100% bad, so it's bad for everything is not very sophisticated. Okay, you're going to have a little bit more. As I said, sophisticated view of things. You recognize that, like I said, that Algol is in fact, from a talismanic standpoint, a very powerful fixed star. So let's talk a little bit about Algol. Has had more attention, and so this is something. Again, this is not in traditional sources, but something that I have been taught. Had a magical practitioner, basically from a Caribbean background, did a lot of curse protection, who was very into our Algol talismans, and did a lot of work with Algol. With protecting people or dealing with curses and malefic spiritual attack. And he was telling me about black, white, and red Algol. So these are sort of different manifestations of Algol. It's very, very traditional. If you give Tara in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you've got white, blue, green Tara, all sorts of different colors, different manifestations, sort of different, ways of, it's almost like different light, colors that can be refracted through to represent sort of different qualities. So red, he said, is just absolutely crazy. You just don't want to deal with red Algol. Of course, when you hear that, there's going to be some people, it's sort of like a drug addict when they hear a particular drug causes a fatal overdose. They're like, oh, where can I get some? It's like people will contact me and say, where can I get red Algol? And I'm like, it's too crazy to deal with. So, that's not a positive. That's not a plus, okay? So black Algol, this is the one that we deal with as far as it's the active and aggressive qualities of it. Agrippa in his 3 books of occult philosophy says that Algol is like a mirror, and anything that's negative is thrown at you, it just turns around and throws it back. I mean, that seems perfectly fair to me. I mean, if someone's throwing all this negativity, they're starting it, they're throwing the negativity at you, and all that happens is they get the same stuff thrown back at them. Hey, that seems fair to me. That's about as aggressive as I would want to get. But the Algol, let me just show you this is the basic consecration image that we use for Algol, the Medusa, head of the Medusa. It's a very powerful, kind of very evocative image. For all the different Algol talismans, this is what we provide as the meditation image. So then let me just show you This is the black algol. So we have black agate algol. This is our most absolutely powerful protection talisman. If you're like, I don't care, I want to have the absolute most powerful protection, this is the one you would definitely go for. Fixed stars usually are not a problem with your natal chart. I mean, you can have me check, but for the most part, all the fixed star talismans I'm going to be showing today are, 99% of the people that look at their chart is going to be fine for them. So like I said, black algol, the most powerful, most aggressive. Someone, a client of mine compared it to a Doberman that goes out and kind of actively neutralizes threats against you. So the other variant of algol is the white algol. This is the white agate algol. This is what I use. This is just purely protective. It's like a shield. And this is also powerful, not quite as powerful as the black algol, but there's no blowback, none of the negative. If you're worried about that, then this would be the one you would go with. And then I'm going to show you, we also have, we have a number of different bronze algos, but this is our sort of standard bronze algol. Again, has the same Medusa head. All the other ones I'm going to show basically look the same, have the bronze with the various images on it. But I just thought I would show you the bronze algol just as a variation. Now, bronze algol, this one can be used for both black and white algol, and depending on how you would use, black altar cloth and black candles for black algol, or white altar cloth and white candles for the white algol. And then what you ask for. I mean, I do a white algol, and I say, protect us, cast your shield around us, allow us to be invisible to our enemies. Whereas the black algol, you'd be like, yeah, protect me from, go out and actively protect me. So that's algol, and you can check out the links to each of those. They're going to be on the page there. Black, white, and the bronze algol. We have a number of other different algol talismans. So let me just talk about, like I said, again, I'm not doing a sell job on algol. I mean, algol is good for me. I like algol. Like I said, I do the algol stuff every day with algol rising or culminating. And, that's my choice. If it's not your preference, that's cool too. And that's why we have so many other choices. So let me just talk about some of the other choices as far as the protection talisman. So the next one I want to talk about is Antares. Antares is the Cor Scorpionis, or the heart of Scorpio. Very powerful protection talisman. This is the one I would go for. If you didn't want to go with algol, then you wanted a powerful protection talisman, this might probably be one of the ones I would go for. Algol is specifically for protection, again, against evil spirits, also gives intelligence and memory. So a very good spiritual protection talisman, Antares. Another powerful talisman is Vega. And Vega is good for courage, also spiritual protection, particularly against curses and evil spirits. So Vega, the image on the talisman is a vulture. Very powerful, very evocative talisman. This is a beautiful Nigel Jackson meditation image. You can see how evocative and intense this image is. And intense is the protection that you'd be getting from the Vega talisman. So the next one is Procyon. Procyon, the talisman has a rooster on it. It's interesting, it ties in with the hoodoo frizzly rooster, which are used for curse protection as well. So it's interesting kind of overlap there. Procyon, this is the Procyon image. Procyon is good for health, but also, again, protection against curses and specifically for witchcraft. So again, Procyon is another one of our very powerful spiritual protection talismans. So then the next talisman I'm going to show you, this is Alkaid. Alkaid is a star in the Ursa Major, the Great Bear. And Alkaid is good for wisdom, but also for protection against magic and against thieves and assassins. So physical attack and protection against, help protect your property as well. So this is getting from the spiritual, both the spiritual, but also a physical attack as well. And physical, someone like stealing stuff or trying to hurt you physically as well. So Alkaid would be an excellent choice for that. Beautiful talisman. Again, very powerful and evocative image for a really gorgeous talisman. So then the next talisman, this is actually a constellation talisman. This is one of the newer ones we have, Lepus. This is for spiritual protection. It says it protects against demonic shades. So in other words, basically evil spirits, demons, ghosts, things like that. Lepus is a particularly good choice for that protection from those. And then sort of one of more generalized talismans, Deneb Algedi. This is a talisman that has multiple protections. It's supposed to be good for increasing wealth in every way. So that's, a lot of times people look at this as a wealth talisman. But this also is very good for safety, particularly safety in the home, and also for success in lawsuits and in court. So this is a great talisman has a lot of different purposes, and protection is one of the purposes that Deneb Algedi, which is you can see is the Capricorn, the goatfish. Again, another beautiful Nigel Jackson image. Um, and then, let's see, finally, Hydra. This is the sea snake, huge constellation for wealth, for wisdom, but also for protection. So again, this is kind of getting all this various different qualities together. Beautiful image here of Hydra. And then the final one I'm going to show you is the 17th mansion. This is a somewhat specialized talisman. This is for protection against the home and possessions, and for protection against thieves. So again, if you wanted a home protection talisman, Deneb Algedi and the 17th mansion would be the ones you would go with. So definitely useful talismans to have. So as you can see, we got a lot of different talismans for protection. And so I would say check those out. For me, again, the way to choose a talisman, I can say whether the particular talisman is compatible with your chart, but which is the best, I don't have any way to do astrologically. It'd be nice, I'd sell more sales, I have more happy customers, but I have to be honest, and I don't think there's a way to determine that this is the best talisman. You can make something up, which is fine, but I think a better way of doing it, a more conscious way of doing this, is just to use your intuition. Say, this one really, I like this one, or this one had a synchronicity here with that one, it's got a similarity or whatever, I like that. Instead of sort of fooling yourself into thinking there's objectively some kind of basis for it in the chart, which again, I don't think there is. But intuition, I think, is good. Also divination. People will do tarot pulls, or they'll do cartomancy, different types. I do I Ching, and I think the pendulum. These are all really good ways to go through. And if you've got a lot of different talismans you want to walk through, you can do the divination for that. Like I said, ultimately, I think intuition is the best way to decide. You look at the picture, you look at the qualities, you look at what the source says about it, and you say, you know what, this is the one that I really feel like is the best for me. That's going to be your best choice. But like I said, in sort of looking at protection talismans, I think it's good if you're at all involved in the astrology or astrological magic, or the spiritual area. It's good to do ritual. It's good to do stuff. I mean, I'm doing prayers to all sorts of bodhisattvas and Buddhas. I do Hail Marys. I do the Islamic Fatiha. I do the, like I said, Algol and the Pleiades every day. I do a lot of ritual. I think it's very helpful. And I think that the protection talismans is certainly, I'd say wealth talismans are our best sellers, but I think number 2 is protection talismans. So people certainly feel a need for it, and we certainly have a lot of positive feedback in terms of the people that have come. You can check that out in the talisman testimonials. I have provide a link there too. So as always, if you're serious about getting a Renaissance Astrology talisman, you can contact me, email me, send me your date of birth, and I can check to make talisman suggestions or to see if stuff is compatible. If you have particular ones you're interested in, I can look and see those. Like I said, with most fixed stars, it's not going to be a problem. You're going to be, almost everybody is fine with almost any fixed star because there's just not contraindications with the chart. But again, I'm happy to do that and check that out for you. So I hope you find that interesting, kind of giving a rundown of how I think about it. Like I said, we're going to find a middle path between thinking there's no evil magic and all magic is evil and all spirits are evil or all spirits are good. Just find that middle path. And then as far as I'm concerned, the best way to protect yourself is to stick with the good magic and the positive stuff, and also get yourself a protection talisman.